তোমার চরণ ধরি। ও হে বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর দয়ার সাগর, এ দাসে করুণা করি। ও হে বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর দয়ার সাগর, এ দাসে করুণা করি। ছায়া বেগদমি ছয় দোষ শোধি, ছয় গুণ দেহ দাসে। ছায়া বেগদমি ছয় দোষ শোধি, ছয় গুণ দেহ দাসে। ছয় শত সঙ্গ দেহ হে আমারে, বসেছি সঙ্গের আসে। ছয় শত সঙ্গ দেহ হে আমারে, বসেছি সঙ্গের আসে। হে বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর দয়ার সাগর, এ দাসে করুণা করি। হে বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর দয়ার সাগর, এ দাসে করুণা করি। একাকী আমার নাহি পায়া বল, হরি নাম সংকীর্তনে। একাকী আমার নাহি পায়া বল, হরি নাম সংকীর্তনে। তুমি কৃপা করি শ্রদ্ধা বিন্দু দিয়া, দেহ কৃষ্ণ নাম ধনে। তুমি কৃপা করি শ্রদ্ধা বিন্দু দিয়া, দেহ কৃষ্ণ নাম ধনে। ও হে বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর দয়ার সাগর, এ দাসে করুণা করি। ও হে বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর দয়ার সাগর, এ দাসে করুণা করি। কৃষ্ণ সে তোমার কৃষ্ণ দিতে পারো, তোমার শক্তি আছে। কৃষ্ণ সে তোমার কৃষ্ণ দিতে পারো, তোমার শক্তি আছে। আমি তো কাঙ্গাল কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ বলি, ধাই তব পাছে পাছে। আমি তো কাঙ্গাল কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ বলি, ধাই তব পাছে পাছে। ও হে বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর দয়ার সাগর, এ দাসে করুণা করি। ও হে বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর দয়ার সাগর, এ দাসে করুণা করি। ও হে বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর দয়ার সাগর, এ দাসে করুণা করি। ও হে বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর দয়ার সাগর, এ দাসে করুণা করি। জয় বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর, জয় বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর। বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর জয় বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর। বিভাবরী শেষ আলোক প্রবেশ, নিদ্রা ছাড়িয়ে উঠো জীব। বিভাবরী শেষ আলোক প্রবেশ নিদ্রা ছাড়িয়ে ওঠো জীবা বল হরি হরি মুকুন্দ মুরারি রাম কৃষ্ণ হয়গ্রীবা বল হরি হরি মুকুন্দ মুরারি রাম কৃষ্ণ হয়গ্রীবা মুকুন্দ নৃসিংহ বামন শ্রী মধুসূদন ব্রজেন্দ্র নন্দন শ্যাম নৃসিংহ বামন শ্রী মধুসূদন ব্রজেন্দ্র নন্দন শ্যাম पूतन घाटन कैतव सातन जय दासरथि राम पूतन घाटन कैतव सातन जय दासरथि राम यशोदा दुलाल गोविंद गोपाल वृंदावन पुरंदर यशोदा दुलाल गोविंद गोपाल वृंदावन पुरंदर गोपी प्रिया जन राधिका रमन भुवन सुंदर वर गोपी प्रिया जन राधिका भुवन सुंदर वर रावणंत कर माखन तस्कर गोपी जन वस्त्रहारी रावणंत कर माखन तस्कर गोपी जन वस्त्रहारी ब्रजेरा राखाला गोप वृंदापाला चित्तहारी बंशीधारी ब्रजेरा राखाला गोप वृंदापाला चित्तहारी बंशीधारी योगींद्र वंदन श्रीनंदनंदन ब्रज जन भयहारी योगींद्र वंदन श्रीनंदनंदन ब्रज जन भयहारी नवीन नीरद रूप मनोहर मोहन बंशी विहारी नवीन नीरद रूप मनोहर मोहन बंशी विहारी यशोदानंदन कंस निषूदन निकुंज रास विलासी यशोदानंदन कंस निषूदन निकुंज रासी कदम्ब कानन रास परायण वृंदा विपिन निवासी कदम्ब कानन रास परायण वृंदा विपिन निवासी आनंद वर्धन प्रेम निकेतन फूल सारा जो खाम आनंद वर्धन प्रेम निकेतन फूल सराजुजुत धाम गोपांगना गण चित्त विनोदन समस्त गुण गान धाम गोपांगना गण चित्त विनोदन समस्त गुण गान धाम जमुना जीवन केली परायण मानस चंद्र चकोर जमुना जीवन केली परायण मानस चंद्र चकोर नाम शुद्ध रस गाओ कृष्ण जस राखो वचन मन मोरा नाम शुद्ध रस गाओ कृष्ण जस राखो वचन मन मोरा नाम शुद्ध रस गाओ कृष्ण जस नाम शुद्ध राखो वचन मन मोरा गाओ कृष्ण राघो वचन मन मोरा जय कृष्ण बलराम कृष्ण बलराम कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम जय राधे श्याम राधे श्याम राधे श्याम जय राधे श्याम राधे श्याम राधे श्याम राधे श्याम जय राधे श्याम जय राधा मदन मोहन राधा मदन मोहन राधे जय राधे जय राधे जय राधे जय श्री राधे जय महाप्रभु जय महाप्रभु महाप्रभु जय महाप्रभु जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह लक्ष्मी नरसिंह लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय सीताराम लक्ष्मण हनुमान सीताराम जय लक्ष्मण हनुमान निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव गौर प्रेमानंद हरि हरि बोल कृष्ण प्रभुपाद महाराज की
Radha Maya Namah Radha Maya Madhavaya Ketanaya Namah Adaye Gopala
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. So, on the tomorrow is the auspicious occasion of Sri Ram Navami, and I got the service to speak about the glories of the Lord and His devotees. So, I seek your blessings so that I may be able to perform the service with good consciousness and pleasing to our deities and to the acharyas and to all of you devotees. So we will start with the Brahma Samhita prayers, and after that Kirtan, and then the Bhagavatam. Please, we'll chant together. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Sahasrapatra Kamalam Gokulakyam Mahatpadam Tatkarnikaram Tadhama Tadantamsha Sambhavam Karnikaram Mahadyantram Shatkonam Vajrakilakam Sadanga Shatpadisanam Prakritya Purushena Cha Premananda Mahananda Rasena Vastitam Hiyat Jyotirupena Manuna Kama Bijena Sangatam Tat Kinjalkam Tad Amshanam Tat Patrani Shriyam Api Chaturashram Tat Paratra Svetadvipakyam Adbhutam Chaturashram Chaturmurtes Chaturdhama Chatushkrutam Chaturbhih Purusharthaischa Chaturbhir Hetubhirvritam Shulair Dashabhir Annadim Urdvado Dikvidikshvapi Ashtabhir Nidhibhir Jushtam Ashtabhir Siddhibhistatha Manurupaischa Dashabhir Dikpalai Paritovratam Shamair Gauraischa Raktaischa Shuklaischa Parshadarshibhi Shobhitam Shakti Vistabhir Adbhutabhir Samatataha Evam Jyotir Mayo Deva Sadananda Paratpara Atma Ramasya Tasyasti Prakritya Na Samagama Mayaya Ramamanasya Naviyogastaya Saha Atmana Ramaya Reme Tyaktakalam Srikshaya Nitaisa Ramadevi Tatpriya Tadvasham Tada Tallingam Bhagavan Shambhur Jyotirupa Sanatana Yayoni Sapara Shakti Kamo Bhijam Mahadhare Lingayonyatmika Jata Ima Maheshwari Prajah Shaktiman Purusha Soyam Lingarupi Maheshwara Tasminnavirbhul Linge Mahavishnur Jagatpatihi Sahasrashirsha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat Sahasrabahur Vishwatma Sahasramsha Sahasrasuhu Narayanassa Bhagavan Apastasmat Sanatanat Avirasat Karanarano Nidhi Sankarshanatmaka Yoga Nidram Gatastasmin Sahasramsha Swayam Mahan Tadroma Bija Jaleshu Bhijam Chankarshanasya Cha Aimanyandani Jatani Mahabhuta Vratani Tu Pratyandam eva ekamshad ekamshad vishati swayam sahasramurdha vishwatma mahavishnu sanatanaha vamangad shasrat vishnum dakshinangat prajapatim ज्योतिर्लिङ्गमयं शम्भुं कूर्चदेशात् अवर्सृजत् अहङ्कारात्मकं विश्वं तस्मादेतद्व्यजात्यत अततैस्त्रिविधैर्वेषैर्लीलाम् उद्वता किल योगनिद्रा भगवती तस्य श्रीरिव सङ्गता शिश्रिक्षायां ततो नाभेस्तस्य पद्मं विनिर्ययौ तन्नालं हेमनालिनं ब्रह्मणो लोक अद्भुतम् तत्त्वानि पूर्वरूढानि कारणानि परस्परं समवयप्रयोगच्च विभिन्नानि पृथक् पृथक् चिच्छक्त्या सज्जमानोत्था भगवान् आदिपुरुषः योजयन् मायया देवो योगनिद्राम् अकल्पयत् योजयित्वा तु तान्येव प्रविविशे स्वयं गुहां प्रविष्टे तस्मिंस्तु जीवात्मा प्रतिबुध्यते स नित्यो नियतसम्बन्धप्रकृतिश्च परैव स एवं सर्वात्मसम्बन्धं नाभ्यां पद्मं हरेरभूत् तत्र ब्रह्म भवद्भूयास्तचुर्वेदी चतुर्मुखः संज्ञातो भगवाच्चक्त्या तत्कालं किल चोदिता शिश्रिक्षायां मतिं चक्रे पूर्वसंस्कारसंस्कृतः ददर्शा केवलं ध्वान्तं नान्यत् किम् अपि सर्वतः उवाच पूर्वस्तस्मै तस्य दिव्या सरस्वती कामकृष्णाय गोविन्द हे गोपीजन इत्यपि वल्लभाय प्रियावाह्नेर्मन्त्रं ते दास्यति प्रियं तपस्त्वं तपत् इतेन तव सिद्धिर्भविष्यति अथ तेऽपि सुचिरं प्रीणान् गोविन्दमव्ययं श्वेतद्वीपापतिं कृष्णं गोकुलस्थं परात्परं प्रकृत्या गुणरूपिण्या रूपिण्या पर्युपासितं सहस्रदलसम्पन्ने कोटिकिञ्चल्कप्रमिते भूमैश्चिन्तामणिस्तत्र कर्णिकारे महासने समासीनां चिदानन्दं ज्योतिरूपं सनातनं शब्दब्रह्मामयं वेणुं वादन्तं मुखाम्बुजे विलासिनी गणवृतं स्वैश्वैरंशैरभिष्टुतम् अथ वेणुनिनादस्य त्रयीमूर्तिमयी गतिः स्फुरन्ति प्रविवेशसौ मुखाब्जानि स्वयंभुवा गायत्रीं गायतस्तस्मात् अधिगत्य सरोजजा संस्कृतश्चादिगुणना द्विजताम् अगमात् ततः त्रय्यप्रबुद्धविधिर्विज्ञाता तत्त्वसागरः तुष्टावा वेदसारेण स्तोत्रेणानेन केशवम् चिन्तामणिप्रकरसद्मसुकल्पवृक्षा लक्षावृतेषु सुरभिरभिपालयन्तं लक्ष्मीसहस्रशतसम्भ्रमसेव्यमानां गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि वेणुं क्वणन्तमरविन्ददलायताक्षं बर्हावतं कन्दर्पकोटिकमनीयविशेषशोभं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि आलोलचन्द्रकलसद्वनमाल्यवंशी रत्नाङ्गदं प्रणयकेलिकलाविलासं श्यामं त्रिभङ्गललितं नियतप्रकाशं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि अङ्गानि यस्य सकलेन्द्रियवृत्तिमन्ति पश्यन्ति पान्ति कलयन्ति चिरं जगन्ति आनन्दचिन्मयसदुज्ज्वलविग्रहस्य गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि अद्वैतमच्युतमनादिमनन्तरूपम् आद्यं पुराणपुरुषं नवयौवनं च वेदेषु दुर्लभमदुर्लभमात्मभक्तौ
गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। पन्थास्तु कोटिशतवत्सरसम्प्रगम्यो वायोरथापि मनिषो मुनिपुङ्गवानां सोऽप्यस्ति यस्ति यत्प्रपश्यन्यविचिन्त्य तत्त्वै गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। एकोऽप्यसौ रचयितुं जगदण्डकोटिं यच्छक्तिरस्ति जगदण्डचयाय दन्तः अण्डान्तरस्थपरमाणुचयान्तरस्थं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। यद्भावभावितधियो मनुजास्तथैव सम्प्राप्य रूपमहिमासनयानभूषाः सुक्तैर्यमेव निगमप्रतितैस्तुवन्ति गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। आनन्दचिन्मयरसप्रतिभाविताभिस्ताभिर्य एव निजरूपतया कलाभिः गोलोक एव निवसत्यखिलात्मभूतो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। प्रेमाञ्जनाचुरितभक्तिविलोचनेन सन्तः सदैव हृदयेषु विलोकयन्ति यं श्यामसुन्दरमचिन्त्य गुणस्वरूपं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। रामादिमूर्तिषु कलानियमेन तिष्ठन् नानावतारमकरोद्भुवनेषु किन्तु कृष्णः स्वयं समभवत्परमः पुमान्यो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। यस्य प्रभा प्रभवतो जगदण्डकोटि कोटिस्वशेषवसुधादिविभूतिभिन्नं तद्ब्रह्मनिष्कलमनन्तमशेषभूतं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। माया हि यस्य जगदण्डशतानि सूते त्रैगुण्यतद्विषयवेदवितायमाना सत्त्वावलम्बि परसत्त्वं विशुद्धसत्त्वं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। आनन्दचिन्मयरसात्मतया मनःसु यः प्राणिनां प्रतिफलं स्मरतामुपेत्य लीलायितेन भुवनानि जयत्यजस्रं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। गोलोकनाम्नि निजधाम्नि तले च तस्य देवी महेशहरिधामसुतेषु तेषु ते ते प्रभावनिचया विहिताश्च येन गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। सृष्टिस्थितिप्रलयसाधनशक्तिरेका चायैव यस्य भुवनानि बिभर्ति दुर्गा इच्छानुरूपमपि यस्य च चेष्टते सा गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। क्षीरं यथा दधिविकारविशेषयोगात् सञ्जायते न हि ततः पृथगस्ति हेतोः यः शम्भुतामपि तथा समुपैति कार्याद् गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। दीपार्चिरेव हि दशान्तरमभ्युपेत्य दीपायते विवृतहेतुसमानधर्म यस्तादृकेव हि च विष्णुतया विभाति गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। यः कारणर्णवजले भजति स्म योग नेत्रामनन्तजगदण्डसरोमकूपा आधारशक्तिमवलम्ब्य परां स्वमूर्तिं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। यस्यैकनिश्वसितकालमथावलम्ब्य जीवन्ति लोकविलजा जगदण्डनाथाः विष्णोर्महान् स इह यस्य कलाविशेषो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। भास्वान्यथांशकलेषु निजेषु तेजा स्वीयं कियत् प्रकटयत्यपि तद्वतत्र ब्रह्माय एष जगदण्डविधानकर्ता गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। यत्पादपल्लवयुगं विनिधाय कुम्भ द्वन्द्वे प्रणामसमये स गणादिराजा विघ्नान् विहन्तुमलमस्य जगत्त्रयस्य गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। अग्निर्महिगगमम्बुमरुद्दिशश्च कालस्तथात्ममनसीति जगत्त्रयाणि यस्माद्भवन्ति विभवन्ति विशन्ति यं च गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। यच्चक्षुरेष सविता सकलग्रहाणां राजा समस्तसुरमूर्तिरशेषतेजा यस्याज्ञया भ्रमति संभृतकालचक्रो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। धर्मोतपापनिचयः श्रुतयस्तपांसि ब्रह्मादिकीटपतगवधयश्च जीव यद्दत्तमात्रविभवप्रकटप्रभाव गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। यस्त्विन्द्रगोपमथवेन्द्रमहोस्वकर्म बन्धानुरूपफलभाजनमातनोति कर्माणि निर्दहति किन्तु च भक्तिभाजां गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। यं क्रोधकामसहजप्रणयादिभीति वात्सल्यमोहगुरुगौरवसेव्यभावैः सञ्चिन्त्य तस्य सदृशीं तनुमापुरेते गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। श्रियः कान्ता कान्ता परमपुरुषा कल्पतरवो द्रुमा भूमिश्चिन्तामणिगणमयी तोयममृतं कथागानं नाट्यं गमनमपि वंशी प्रियसखी चिदानन्दं ज्योतिः परममपि तद् आस्वादयमपि च स यत्र क्षीराब्धिः स्रवति सुरभिभ्यश्च सुमहान् निमिषेऽर्ताख्यो व्रजति न हि यत्रापि समय भजे श्वेतद्वीपं तमहं इह गोलोकयम् इति यं विदन्तस्ते सन्तक्षितिविरलचारकटिपये अथो वाचा महाविष्णुर्भगवन्तं प्रजापतिं ब्रह्मन्महत्त्वविज्ञाने प्रजसर्गे च चेन्मते पञ्चश्लोकीमिमं विद्यां वत्सदत्तं निबोध मे प्रभुत्ते ज्ञानभक्तिभ्याम् आत्मन्यानन्दचिन्मये उदेत्यनुत्तमा भक्तिर्भगवत्प्रेमलक्षणा प्रमाणैस्तत्सत्सरचरैस्तत्भ्यासैर्निरन्तरं बोधयन् आत्मनात्मानं भक्तिम् अप्युत्तमं लभेत्। यस्य श्रेयकरं नास्ति यया निवृत्तमाप्नुयात्। यस्साध्यते मामेव भक्तिं तामेव साध्यते। धर्मानन्यानि परित्यज्य मामेकं भज विश्वस्वान्। यादृशी श्रद्धा सिद्धिर्भवति तादृशी। कुर्वन्निरन्तरं कर्म लोकोऽयम् अनुवर्तते। तेनैव कर्मणा ध्यायन् मां परां भक्तिमिच्छति। अहं हि विश्वस्य चराचरस्य बीजं प्रधानं प्रकृतिः पुमांश्च। मायाहितं तेज इदं बिभर्षि विधे विधेहि त्वमथो जगन्ति। ईश्वरा परमकृष्ण सच्चिदानन्दविग्रह। अनादिरादिर्गोविन्दः सर्वकारणकारणम्। इति श्रीब्रह्मसंहितासम्पूर्णं। हरिः ओम्।
So today's topic of discussion would be on Rama and Nama, and both of them are related topics. But before we start the discussion, maybe we can do small kirtan. I should. It's okay today. जय श्री श्री राधा मदन मोहन की जय। श्रीमान महाप्रभु की जय। श्री श्री लक्ष्मी नरसिंहदेव भगवान की जय। श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदी हरि हरि। जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी। गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी। गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी। गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी। गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदनंदन व्रज जन रंजन। 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 यमुना तीरावनचारी। यमुना तीरावनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी। गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी।
गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी राधा माधव कुंज विहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रजजन रञ्जन यमुना तीरवनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी राधा माधव कुंज विहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रजजन रञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रजजन यशोदानन्दन व्रजजन रञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रजजन रञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रजजन रञ्जन यमुना तीरवनचारी यमुना तीरवनचारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayo Radha Madan Mohan Radha Madan Mohan Radhe. Jayo Radha Madan Mohan Radha Madan Mohan Radhe. Jayo Mahaprabhu Mahaprabhu संकीर्तनम की जय। जय श्री श्री राधा मदन मोहन श्रीमान महाप्रभु श्री श्री लक्ष्मण नरसिंहदेव श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। First we will do the prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padanam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namah. Matsamo Nasti Papatma Naparadi Chakaschana Parihare Pilajjame Kimbruve Purushottama. Bhumau Skalita Padanam Bhumireva Valambanam. Tvayi Jata Paradantvam Tvameva Sharanam Prabho. Govinda Vallabhe Radhe प्रार्थये त्वम् अहं सदा त्वदीयम् इति जानातु गोविन्दो मां त्वया सह हरेर्नाम हरेर्नाम हरेर्नामैव केवलम् कलौ नास्त्येव 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 गतिरन्यथा. So tomorrow that there is Ram Navami. As I was preparing, I found this beautiful picture of Sita, Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman along with the other brothers. So this is a famous shloka and we can recite together. Dakshine Lakshmano yasya Vame tu Janakatmaja Purato Marutiryasya Tam Vande Raghunandanam Tam Vande Raghunandanam Tam Vande Raghunandanam. So, before we speak about Lord Rama, it is important to set the context that he appears in the Raghuamsha. Though the Lord doesn't need any context and is independent, but still to respect the Suryamsha in which he appeared, or Raghuamsha. So, we know about this legendary king called Maharaj Katwanga. So, when the Devas asked him to fight on behalf of them, and so he had fought tirelessly for a long time. And then when the Devas asked him, what do you want in return as a boon? Then Maharaj Katwanga asked them that, how long do I have, before I have to get to my next destination? So before, leaving the body. Then they said, you have 1 moment. So, and then Maharaj Katwanga immediately, being the devotee of the Lord, he knew exactly what needed to be done. So he would just descend from the heavenly planets back to the earthly realm, and then because of the time difference, not time zone difference, but the time dilation, so the 1 moment became like almost 1 muhurta, I think, if I remember right. So almost like 40 minutes or something, 48 minutes. So during that time, he performed intense meditation on the Supreme Lord, and he attained perfection. That's all it took for him. And in that Vamsha, after Maharaj Katwanga, his son Dirghabahu, that's the name of that's the name of his son. Sorry. And after that is Maharaj Raghu, after whom the whole Raghu Vamsha is named. So he is the famous king of the Raghu dynasty, and then his son is Maharaj Aja, and his son is Dasharatha, and Dasharatha's son is Lord Ramachandra. So that is the dynasty in which Lord Rama is appearing, and he has chosen to bestow his merciful presence in that Vamsha of Maharaj Katwanga and Raghu. So we can go to the next slide. So Lord Rama is an incarnation of the Supreme Absolute Truth, and Rama, the very name means one who is the supreme enjoyer, or who is the reservoir of all spiritual pleasure. And we hear the word Ramayana, like Narayana, and Ramayana describes the journey of Lord Rama and describes him not as the Supreme Lord per se, but mostly as an ideal human being. And the context is that when Valmiki asked Narad Muni about who is the ideal human who is present, and then whom he wanted to write about. Then Narad Muni told that he is actually present in this earth at this time, and that is Lord Rama. And when Valmiki started, before that Valmiki was Ratnakara, he was a hunter, and he would kill animals and cause pain to them for a living. And then when Narad Muni noticed this, so when he asked Valmiki to transform by taking the holy name, he was so inflicted in the sinful life that he couldn't even take the name of the Lord and Rama. So, and the great acharyas always have a master plan to deliver all the living entities back to Godhead. So Narad Muni said that, okay, you cannot chant the name of the Lord, chant the name of death. So he said, you chant Mara, 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 Mara. So that's how Valmiki started chanting the Ramanama. And then by the effect of the holy name, Valmiki became a great sage, worshipable sage, and a great devotee. And he composed the magnum opus, Valmiki Ramayana, that is eternally glorifying the Lord in his form as Ramachandra. And it is very interesting to note that Lord Rama, despite being the supreme enjoyer, if you take a look at his entire life during Ramayana, it's mostly filled with challenges. And there is a lot of challenging situations he had to encounter, both at home in Ayodhya as well as when he was went to the Vanavasa in the forest. And though he is playing the role of an ideal human being, we also note that he is also the Supreme Lord who appeared to deliver Ravana and less the burden on Mother Earth, and at the request of the Devatas, and who were terrified by the presence of Ravana. So he faced the demons and at a very young age, along with Lakshmana. When Vishwamitra Muni, he had come to Ayodhya, Maharaj Dashrath offered him his throne to sit, and then he asked, what would you like, my great sage, my dear great sage? So the sage was being a sage, so his focus is always on performing the tapasya for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord and for the benefit of the entire world. And he asked him that, I heard you have a glorious son named Rama, so I would like him to assist the sages in destroying the demons who are creating impediments in the performance of the yajna. And these are Maricha and Subahu, who are the messengers of Ravana, so to speak. They were under Ravana's jurisdiction. And then Maharaj Dashrath was shocked to hear this, that being the dearmost to his heart, Lord Rama, and he couldn't also tell no to the sage. After a great dilemma, then Maharaj Dashrath consulted with his, the Rajguru of him, who is Vasishtha Rishi. And Vasishtha advised him that, I know about Vishwamitra. He is a great sage, and he himself is capable of just destroying the Rakshasas by the mantras. But because he has to perform this great sacrifice, he should not do those violent activities there. So he is asking for Lord Rama's assistance. But actually the reason is he also wants to train Lord Rama and Lakshmana as warriors. Of course, the Lord does not need any training as such, because he is always equipped with the full 6 opulences, right from his appearance and eternally. And but to bestow mercy upon Vishwamitra, in a sense, that it's a orchestration of the plan of the Lord. And then upon Vashishta's advice, Maharaj Dashrath finally agreed to send Rama and Lakshmana with Vishwamitra. So when Rama and Lakshmana went with Vishwamitra, they would stay on the banks of the river and live life like mendicants. So, and in the process, they accepted Vishwamitra as their guru, and they would just humbly serve Vishwamitra by performing menial services for him. So this sets the example that even if it is the Supreme Lord, he to set the example for others to follow, he accepts the guru, and then he follows the instructions of the guru. Though he is the the guru of all living entities, but still to set an example, whether it be Rama, whether it be Krishna, they have all set examples so that we follow in the footsteps of practicing dharmic and spiritual lifestyle. So once this happened, Vishwamitra being a sage, he would wake up very early, and then Rama and Lakshmana, he would wake them up. And this is the time when we hear this famous shloka that Kausalya Supraja Rama Purvam Sandhya Pravartate Uttishta Narashardulam Kartavyam Daivamanikam. So this was the shloka that was composed by Vishwamitra when he saw that Lord Rama was looking so beautiful even when he was taking rest and about to get up. So he, this is the famous shloka that Vishwamitra composed during that journey. And after that, Vishwamitra trained them in lots of, arrows and mantras and weapons. And once the sacrifice was happening, Lord Rama and Lakshmana, they safeguarded the entire arena and then let the sacrifice happen peacefully and successfully. And in the process, Subahu was shot, he was delivered, and he was shot by the arrows of Lord Ram. And Marichi was also shot, but he flew to a great distance and fell elsewhere. And so we see that by this, the Lord is setting the example of Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinashaya Cha Dushkrutam. So he delivered the demons in the forest, Vinashaya Cha Dushkrutam, and he safeguarded the sages, Paritranaya Sadhunam. And then eventually, upon the after the marriage of the Lord with his eternal consort Mother Sita, when they return back to Ayodhya, then as the days pass, one day Kaikeyi gets this evil thought due to her maidservant Manthara, and she thinks that my child Bharat will not get the throne, and then if Rama is there, and so taking advantage of one of the promises Maharaj Dashrath gave to her, she asks him to send Lord Rama away. And Maharaj Dashrath faces a very painful situation about keeping his word, being a king. And so in one of the lessons that comes up here is one should not give promises without consideration. So apatra danam, right? Krishna mentions about it in apatra bhiyas in Bhagavad Gita. So without due consideration, such charity should not be given, or word should not be given. So that is one of the reasons Maharaj Dashrath was bound by his word, and then he had to let go of Lord Rama, which was very painful. And Lord Rama, it is said that when this news was conveyed to him, he was about to be coronated as the emperor. And then it is mentioned that when Lord Rama heard this news, there was not even a change of reaction in his face. He was just smiling, and he just accepted it as his Pitru Agnya, so his father's instruction. And then he just wanted to leave alone, and then he asked Mother Sita to stay back. And then Mother Sita replies that what will I tell to my father I have promised him to be with you for a lifetime. And even if it is, in the forest, being with, you, Lord Rama, is is what I would want to do always. So this shows the ideal example that how
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare.
this is the ideal example. We should always chant the holy names, and that contains everything for us to learn. And so we see that how Mother Sita was, knowing that the hostile environment in the forest, she still accompanied Lord Ram, and then they pretty much lived the life of monks or mendicants in the forest. And soon the episode of Surpanaka comes. So Surpanaka goes to, while touring around in the forest, she comes across Lakshmana, and she finds him very beautiful or handsome, and then she approaches him, you look very beautiful, you should get married to me and you should be with me. And then Lakshmana is he's married, and then Surpanaka is a demon, and he knew that, though she was in disguise. And he tells that jokingly that actually my brother is more handsome than me, so you should get married to my brother Rama. And then when Surpanaka approaches Rama, and she tries to when Rama refuses, Surpanaka he doesn't agree, and then she gets her nose cut because of that. And in the pain, she runs to her brother Ravana and tells him that these brothers are there, Rama and Lakshmana, and Rama has a beautiful wife, Sita. And this is the power of just bad association in a sense. Ravana, he was not considering about knowing Mother Sita or anything of that sort. But the moment Surpanaka knew this very well, that you just have to push the trigger. And then she gave the news to Ravana, and that was the bija that was put, the seed that was sown into Ravana's consciousness. And then Ravana acted upon it, and eventually we see the downfall of Ravana. Of course, in the pastime wise, it's the deliverance of Ravana. It happened in that manner. But the lesson to learn is we should be very cautious of what association we are taking. And association is that of consciousness. Because physically or we may be together, but still what we are meditating on, that is what really association is all about. And bhakti that way is a journey of the consciousness more than anything else. So Ravana's consciousness got polluted. It was already he had his anarthas, and then this only added to it. And so he goes to the forest, and he sees that he needs to come up with a strategy. So he employs his demon servants to go and in the form of a golden deer, and the golden deer to captivate Mother Sita. So the golden deer playfully runs around the hermitage, and then Mother Sita notices the deer, and then she tells Lord Rama that I want the deer to play with. So and then Lord Rama is like, that deer looks quite unusual, don't you think? And then Mother Sita is, no, I like the deer, I wanted to want to play. So and then respecting Mother Sita's request, of course it's a pastime, but still, so respecting Mother Sita's request, Lord Rama runs behind the deer, and the deer is a demon in disguise. So the deer runs fast to take Rama away from the hermitage. And while going, Lord Rama says to Lakshmana that at any cost you should not come out of this hermitage, because in my absence it's your responsibility to protect Mother Sita. So saying like that, strictly Lord Rama leaves, and then after going to a farther location, the Lord Rama, he understands that that deer is not a deer, but it's a demon. And when he shoots the arrow, the deer immediately starts making the mimicking the voice of Rama, and he says, "Hey Lakshmana, hey Sita." So the Lakshmana and Sita, who were there in the hermitage, they thought that, oh my dear Lord, you are in trouble. So Mother Sita gets very anxious. So she tells Lakshmana that your brother is in trouble. And Lakshmana is like, no, he has instructed me to stay here, and my brother, I know what he is capable of. So we don't we don't need to worry about this really. But then again, the demon makes the say like more in a more helpless state. Hey Lakshmana, hey Sita. And then the Sita and Lakshmana, they are again hearing these sounds again and again. Mother Sita is extremely perturbed. So she tells Lakshmana that why are you not going? It seems like you have something else in mind that you are not going. So this really pained Lakshmana, because in the one of the later episodes, when Jatayu asks Lakshmana to recognize whether the jewelry belonged to Mother Sita, because as Ravana was kidnapped Sita and then they flew, Mother Sita dropped her jewels to give cues for Lord Rama to follow. And some of them where Jatayu had kept them after Jatayu's defeat. And then the associates or someone, because Jatayu was almost at the stage of leaving his body, and when Lord Rama and Lakshmana approached him, then he asks, do you know whose do this jewelry belong to? And then Lakshmana couldn't identify anything other than the anklet. So the beautiful verse comes in that regard, that he says, Nupura eva janami. So he basically never looked at Mother Sita in the eye. He always had his head down to a lotus feet. So that is the integrity and character of Lakshmana. And when such Lakshmana was being questioned about the same, he felt very pained. And the moment he heard that, he couldn't bear that those words. And then he told Mother Sita that, okay, I will draw these lines, the rekha, and then please do not cross this. I will go and look for brother. And then so he goes from there. And then Ravana seizes the opportunity to come and kidnap Mother Sita. And in the pursuit, he comes as a fake monk or a fake sannyasi, fake sadhu. And then he comes to the hermitage and asks Mother Sita for alms. And then Mother Sita wanted to give the alms from just within the line, because Lakshmana asked her not to cross. And then he pretended that he got angry. And then being a sage, in the garb of a sage, Mother Sita did not like the sage getting angered. So she stepped across, and then he took the opportunity to transform himself into the demon Ravana form. And then he kidnapped Mother Sita. So there are many lessons in this episode as well. And one of the it is said that because there was offense that was committed to Lakshmana, that Mother Sita had to stay separate. This is one of the explanations that's given. But so we have to keep this very careful, that we should not commit offenses toward especially devotees. To any living entity, it is not a good idea to commit offenses. Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita that those who are friendly toward all living entities, they are very dear to him. So we are trying to progress in the path of our bhakti, and then the worst thing one can do is to commit offenses to fellow devotees who are having the same mission to progress and preach about bhakti. So the Vaishnava aparadha is the most stunting in anyone's spiritual growth. So it's extremely important to be conscious of one's own actions, and not only actions, from the very thoughts, because thoughts lead to words, words lead to actions. So it's very important to catch those at the very initial moments when to see the quality of one's own consciousness. And ideally, like Krishna should always be there in the consciousness of a devotee, Krishna and his devotees. And Krishna says that Yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sacha mena pranashyati. Very beautiful verse, it says in 6th chapter in Bhagavad Gita. So he says, Yomam pashyati sarvatra. Anyone who sees me everywhere. Sarvam cha mai pashyati. Who sees everything in me. Everything in me as in Krishna has become their world. They don't have any world other than Krishna. Tasya aham na pranashyami. To such a person, I am never perished. I am never lost. Sacha mena pranashyati. Such a person is never lost to me. So when we keep Krishna in our consciousness and favorably by trying to serve him and his devotees, Krishna also keeps us in his consciousness. And what is a better protection than the Lord thinking of us? The Lord and his devotees. When they think of us, then there is hope. There is the pastime of Narad Muni delivering. Narad Muni delivers many souls, so his constant endeavor is to give mercy to all the living entities in different planetary systems. And then he comes to this person called Kailash. So Kailasha is very busy in his family life, and when Narad Muni comes and tells him that, Kailash, do you want to learn about bhakti? Do you want to learn about spirituality? So he says, no sage, I don't have much time, and I'm very busy with my sons and family and work. So Kailash, so Narad Muni says, okay, I will come back again. So Narad Muni leaves. And then after some time, Kailash actually departs. So after he departs, his sons grow up, and then they are taking care of the home and the field that is present. And so Kailash in his next life, because there is so much of attachment, he becomes a dog at their home. And Narad Muni, being the transcendental sage, he knew that it's the same Kailash. So when he is again going along that way, Narad Muni stops at the dog and he says that, Kailash, what are you doing in the body of a dog? He says like, I am actually guarding my sons. I am guarding the property so that they are protected and they are happy. And Narad Muni is he understood, okay, this person is not going to give up attachment so easily. So he devised a plan, and he basically, like, when the sons came to know about the dog, then they just tried to drive him away, but then the dog wouldn't move from there. And then after some time, the dog dies. And then because of so much of attachment and guarding and trying to remove any unscrupulous elements from the surroundings, he takes the birth of a snake. So he goes into the body of a snake. It is said those who take a snake body, snakes are very considered very envious creatures. So when someone has exhibited some very bad karma, in that sense, they get the body of a dangerous snake, and then Kailash goes into that body. And when Narad Muni again he comes back and he sees that Kailash he is too attached. So this time he says that he goes to the children of Kailash and then tells him that there is a snake that's spoiling your crop in your field. Though the snake was guarding, but still humans being humans and snakes being snakes, they hit the snake and hit it to death, basically, bait it to death. And then after that, Narad Muni, so that way eventually, like how the person's consciousness gets degraded due to bad attachment, bad association. So that is very much evident. Krishna says, Raga Dvesha Vimuktaistu Vishayan Indriyascharan Atma Vasher Vidhe Atma Prasadam Adhigacchati. He gives, we chant this verse, prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasopyajayate prasanna chetoso yasur buddhi paryavatishtate. But immediately in the previous verse, Krishna says, what is the qualification to take prasadam? Now, who is eligible for prasada? So he says, raga dvesha vimuktaistu vishayan indrayishcharan. So those who are vimukta, or free from raga and dvesha, and those whose indriyas, the senses, are not driven toward sense objects. Atma vasher videya atma. So the living entity has sense control, atma vasher. So the living entity is not is like a fully grounded in the self and in the Lord. Prasadam adhigacchati. Such a living entity gets prasada. So this is what Krishna says before the effect of prasadam taking place, buddhi paryavatishtate. So it's very important that we have the right attachment and right consciousness, because this is what is really Krishna consciousness about. It's about having Krishna and his internal energies, his devotees in our consciousness, because that is the way the consciousness gets purified. And there is a verse in Bhagavatam. Let me... Yeah. Prasangam ajaram pasham atmana kavayo vidu sayeva sadhushu kruto mokshadvaram apavritam. So the meaning is how this prasangam ajashram, so this attachment is ajaram pasham. So the attachment is very strong and it leads to entanglement. And this is known by the those who are learned. Those who are learned, they know about this. But the same, they say that when the same attachment is transferred to sadhus, or those who are spiritually minded devotees, moksha dwaram apavritam. That same attachment leads to opens doors to liberation, or opens doors to freedom from bondage, and so that one can use the freedom to serve the Lord. So this is important, because one cannot completely get detached just like that. And even detachment in bhakti is only there to serve the process of doing bhakti. So unlike the paths more like the Jnana Yoga paths, where detachment is of primary interest, in bhakti service to the Lord is the primary interest. But that themselves gives the Jnana and Vairagya. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janatyashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chatad Ahetukam. So unconditionally or causelessly, the Jnanam and Vairagya, they accompanied the devotee. So the devotee doesn't need to do extra endeavor. Automatically the devotee gets Jnana and Vairagya. If you see how that happens, Krishna mentions in Chaturshloki Bhagavad Gita, he says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam preti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. He says, satata yuktanam, those who are constantly engaged in his service, bhajatam preti purvakam, in a dear manner, in a loving devotional service. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. I give buddhi to them. I give the intelligence to them. Yenamam upayantite, by which they come back to me, Krishna says. So Krishna personally gives the intelligence. How does he give? Next verse he says, Tesham evanu kampartam aham ajnana jamtamah nashyam yatma bhavasto jnana deepena bhasvata. He says, Tesham evanu kampartam aham ajnana jamtamah. So the tamas that leads to the ajnana in the heart, nashyam yatma bhavasto. By being present within the heart, I destroy that. How? Jnana deepena bhasvata. I give the knowledge of light. When we say, like when we chant Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So Krishna, as the Chaitya Guru, gives the knowledge from within, and externally the gurus that we have, they give the knowledge from external. And both of these are ultimately helping us to elevate our consciousness. Ultimately, in bhakti, it's a journey of the consciousness, and it's a journey of faith, and it's journey of love. That's why bhakti yoga is also the yoga of love, because this is the eternal love between the living entity and the Supreme Lord. Now the word love has many connotations, but this unconditional, pure, unalloyed love between the devotee and the Lord, that is the entire journey of bhakti. And when we come to bhakti, there is some faith. We give a benefit of doubt that okay, maybe there is something in this process. Maybe I will get more peaceful, or maybe I have some, I am so frustrated in my life, or I need wealth, or I am just curious. What do these people do? So one way or the other, Krishna says, Chaturvida bhajante mam jana sukritino arjuna artho artharthi jignamsur jnani cha bharatarshava. So these four types of people: artho, those who are desperate, they have a big need, they are in poverty, or in searching for artharthi, or they are searching for some desire to be fulfilled. Jignamsur, those who are curious, maybe I want to learn more about life. What is there more to life? Is it all like usual? Everybody takes birth, they take a different path, and then they end up in the same place, graveyard. So is there something more meaningful to life? Is there something higher about it? And then jnani cha bharatarshava, and the person who is already in knowledge, and then they are continuing from their previous lives in their journey. So those are the different types of people Krishna says they come to him. And then once they come to Krishna consciousness, by good fortune, if they are able to take the path of bhakti, there is certainly some faith to begin with. Ado Shraddha. For example, when we go to, when we take a flight to travel, we don't go to the pilot and check, show me your license. Otherwise, I'm not going to board the plane. So we put faith. And it's not an option to put faith, because we put faith in so many places. When we go to the stop sign, we assume that the other person who is coming later than us will stop. And then when the traffic lights, we assume that people follow it. So there are so many places where we put our faith. So similarly, we give a benefit of doubt when we put Ado Shraddha and Tatha Sadhu Sangha. So we put Ado Shraddha, that there is something about the process, and then these devotees are trying to progress in some noble objective. Maybe let me be part of that as well, and let me try. Ado Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangha Bhajana Kriya Anartha Nivritti Syat. So Bhajana Kriya is the chanting and hearing that we do. So when we chant Krishna's holy names, and when we hear about the Krishna and his devotees from the scriptures, then slowly the next process, which is Anartha Nivritti, starts. Anartha Nivritti is the long phase where all the Shadripus that are present, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, all of these, they are there in the living entity due to the ignorance from many lifetimes. And then this process takes a long time to for the person to get cleansed. So Anartha Nivritti, and then starts Nishtha. Nishtha is the place where the person is grounded in the process of bhakti. Before that, there is always swaying. Sometimes when my mood is good, then I will chant. Otherwise, maybe next day. So that is Anishtita Bhakti. And then the Nishtita is, or the Nishtha stage, is when the person is completely stable and rooted in bhakti. No matter what, the person is performing their bhakti in their own way and in their own capacity, but constantly. So, and then there is Asakti, Ruchi Asakti. So there is some taste and there is some attachment to the process. And these are stages that will come up once the person becomes more and more serious in bhakti. Then Krishna shows the path from within, and Krishna arranges for the path from without as well. So, and when the sincere devotee takes to this, then they start seeing Krishna's presence, Krishna's hand in their life. And many of your cases, like the very fact that there is devotee association itself shows that it's a big blessing of Krishna. And the very fact that somebody is able to be in Krishna's abode, in the holy place, and that too multiple times, that shows that Krishna's blessings are there, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's blessings are there. And so it is very important to be having that grateful consciousness, and understand that it's Krishna who is arranging for the progress of every living entity, including us, and through various means. And then there is bhava, and that is the stage of love of God, where one cannot actually see anything separate from Krishna. So it is just the person just gets so much into Krishna consciousness, that Krishna is always in their consciousness, and they see everything in relation to Krishna. For them, there is nothing separate from Krishna. So in one of the famous quotes we hear, I think Chandogya Upanishad, is Sarvam Khalavidam Brahma. So there Prabhupada mentions everything is Brahman. Like a blank translation, everything is Brahman. So that means this chair, table, all of this Brahman. The question comes. So then the way to understand that is, actually for a devotee, everything is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Even the chair, the microphone, the table, the laptop, everything. That is divine consciousness. When we see the world in that light, in that consciousness, we already have a strong footing to support sustainable living, support ahimsa, so many things. But this is all with a Krishna conscious orientation. So this is all done to please Krishna, and seeing Krishna everywhere. So naturally, when we see Krishna in other living entities as well, we don't want to harm them. It is only natural. And then at the stage of prema, then that is when it is when Krishna gives darshana, and then there are more esoteric things that are described. But that's the journey. When we start from Ado Shraddha all the way to the prema, which is so love or bhakti yoga. When we say it's the yoga of love, this is what it means. It's actually progression from almost having like very unsteady or shakable faith to cultivating that relationship such that it becomes an eternal relationship with Krishna. So we all have an eternal relationship, and we may have to we may not know what it is, and we have to wait and have faith in the process, and we have to follow it sincerely. And then when the time comes, Krishna reveals, and Krishna's internal energy bhakti, Radharani, she reveals the path of the living entity for in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. So it is important for us to stick to the path no matter what. So a fixed number of chanting rounds. So this is like long ago when I initially came to Krishna consciousness. So my mentor who used to be there, so he told me that even if you can't chant 16 rounds, you have the target and you keep chanting, because never ever leave the holy name. Of course, he didn't mean that we should not chant 16 rounds, but the point here is it's very important to always associate with the holy name, and always associate with the shastras, with the devotees, because that is what keeps our consciousness in Krishna consciousness, or in grounded in Krishna's bhakti. So that is very important. And this way, this is actually the yoga of love, yoga of divine love. And we get to the point of loving Krishna with our heart. Or those who are devoted to Rama, when they feel, or loving Rama with their heart. So I think we had many other things to cover in the slides, and so I will just continue here. So when we talk about God or the Supreme Absolute Truth, there are certain characteristics, because just because somebody can do something wonderful, do they become God? The question comes. So Parashara, the father of Vyasa, he gives in the Vishnu Purana this quotation that Aishwaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashasasriya jnana vairagyavos chaiva shannam bhagam itingana. So these six bhaga, or these six opulences, those who possess in full, those who possess that in samagrasya, in full, then they are called Bhagavan. Bhagavan is one who possesses bhaga or opulences. So what are these six bhagas? They are wealth, Aishwaryasya, Viryasya, power or strength. Yashas is fame. They're famous. And Shriya, they have influence or beauty. Shriya is beauty. And Jnana and Vairagya, they have knowledge and they have renunciation. If you see here, especially when we consider the renunciation of Lord Rama, as a young prince, he could simply leave the comforts of the royal palace without any reaction. I mean, like he just he was happy to follow the order of his father. And then he went to the forest. And then when he was asked to take the throne, he was hesitant. He said, Bharat can rule. But then when he was asked, then he was ready for that. So it's, the Lord Ram, he was, very renounced, beautiful, and famous, that after millions of years we are still singing the glories of the Lord, eternal pastimes. And strength and wealth. It is said that at one point he gave the kingdom, different sections of the kingdom, to different sages. And then the sages returned to him that saying that you have already given us so much, so please kindly accept the kingdom, and you are the ideal ruler, you are the Lord yourself. So we see that how Lord Rama is so full of divine opulences and qualities, that he is called Maryada Purushottama Ramachandra. So that way, it's not like anybody who is a little powerful, little knowledgeable, having little wealth, they all become Bhagavan. Wealth is Shri or Lakshmi, and then the Pati of that wealth, or Lakshmi Pati, is the master of all riches, the Lord of all riches. So that way, Lord Rama, Lord Vishnu, Narayana, Krishna, they're all the masters of the goddesses of fortune. And so all of them are Bhagavan in that sense. And then we see that there are other characteristics that are mentioned in different places. And in Shveteshvatara Upanishad, there is the verse that na tasya karyam karanam cha vidyate, na tat samah chabhyadikascha drishyate, parasya shaktir vividaiva shruyate, swabhaviki jnana balakriya cha. So na tasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. So there is no nothing to do for them. No, we always have to do some work. Even if you want to sit simple, the mind pushes to do something or the other. So Krishna says that nobody can avoid work. And so the description of God is such that he doesn't have any work that needs to be done. Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. Na tatah samah chabhyadikascha drishyate. So drishyate. So there is no equal to him, nor there is anyone greater than him. And Krishna says this in first person in Bhagavad Gita. What does he say? He says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattaha sarvam pravartate. He says, I am the Prabhu of everyone, and from me come everything. So it is very rare to find such direct statements in the scriptures coming from any person. So Krishna says that to Arjuna. And so we understand that, of course, Krishna is the supreme Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan, Purusham Shashvatam Divyam, Adi Devam Ajam Vibhum. So Krishna is that Param Brahma. He is not just a Brahman, he is the supreme Brahman, Param Brahma. So, and Krishna himself says, Maya Dyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam Hetu Nanena Kaunteya Jagat Viparivartate. He says, under my direction, Maya Dyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. She gives, produces all the transformations, and she, all the living entities move, and through the body is made of Prakriti, material elements. So all of that is running under his direction. And Krishna is also glorified in Brahma Samhita as Sarva Karana Karanam. This is another definition of the Supreme Absolute Truth. There is no cause beyond him, beyond the because if somebody can cause the Supreme Absolute Truth, then that becomes more superior because they have come before. And Krishna says, Aham Adir hi Devanam. So he says in Bhagavad Gita that he is the Adi. And in Brahma Samhita also we hear that Brahmaji is mentioning that Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda. He is infinite. There is no he is Anadi and he is Adi as well. He is the beginning of everything. Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So we see that these are the defining characteristics. And this also means the Lord is eternal. And when he appears on this planet to perform his leelas, that is serving several purposes, foremost of which is giving pleasure to his devotees, to attract the conditioned souls back to him, and to all the other reasons that Krishna mentions. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So now then the question comes, how come there are so many forms? If the Supreme Absolute Truth, is it like one entity or like many entities? How does it work? So we see in Rig Veda this famous quote is present, which is Ekam Sad Vipuraha Bahudaha Vadanti. So in one of the ways we can translate this is the reality is one, but it is described in multiple ways by the learned. And we see that Bhagavatam actually expands it further. If you see the underlined words here, Vipraha and the counterpart Tattva Vidaha and Vadanti, to Vadanti. So Bhagavatam starts, says, Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. So Bhagavatam says the learned transcendentalists who know this absolute truth call this non-dual substance. So Bhagavatam is not saying that these are all split. Bhagavatam is saying everything is it's non-dual. There is no difference between Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. So they are all the same absolute truth which are manifesting in different ways. But actually they are not different. So they are all in that sense same. So this non-duality is, he clearly says Advayam, Bhagavatam. But then, if it is Advayam, then how do we understand all these different manifestations? Because Brahma Samhita mentions Ramadi Murtishu Kalani Amena Tishtan Nana Avataram Akarod Bhuvaneshu. So the Brahma Samhita says that Krishna Swayam Sambhavat Paramapumanyo Govindamadi Purusham Tamam Bhajami. So he says, Brahmaji says that Krishna is self-situated as the Lord and he is accompanied by his eternal expansions. Ramachandra, Baladeva, Sankarshana, Narayana, Mahavishnu, and these are examples Prabhupada gives. So we basically understand that it's the same one absolute truth, but manifests into multiple. Now, why does this happen? For that, we actually, in the next slide it is there. But basically, now we saw that Bhagavatam describes about Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan, these three different features. Now question comes, what is the relation between them? So some people think that the Jyoti, the formless is the form of, is the support or the basis for everything that has a form. And this is in the impersonal or Mayavada, the form doesn't have any substance to it. The form is Maya. And then there is impersonalism, Brahmavada, which considers the Brahman as the highest. So Krishna is mentioning in Bhagavad Gita, Brahmanoye pratishtaham. He says that I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman. And the analogy is given that of a sun. So we see that there is sun and then there are sun rays. The sun rays are formless and the sun has a form. So similarly, we understand that from the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is described as Bhagavan in the verse of the Bhagavatam that we just saw, the effulgence that comes out of that form, that we understand, in fact the effulgence that comes out of the toe nails is described as the Brahma Jyoti, and that is the brilliant effulgence beyond behind which many panthas, many sages, they go behind that, the Jnana Yogis, They want to have that as their final destination, to merge with the Supreme. So that Brahman effulgence is has the support or foundation in the personal form Krishna. So, and then Krishna also mentions that in other place that matta sarvam pravartate, and that the everything in this world that we see and we cannot see, everything emanates from him. And Krishna also clarifies then, what about the relation between the unmanifest and manifest. He also mentions avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyante mama buddhaya param bhava majananto mama avyayam anuttamam. So he says that avyaktam vyaktimapannam, it's like, those who think manyante mama buddhaya, the unintelligent people, those who don't understand Krishna properly, they think that avyaktam vyaktimapannam, that he was avyakta or impersonal before, and then he became vyakta or person. And param bhava majananto mama avyayam anuttamam. He says they don't know param bhavam, my great manifestation, my eternal beautiful form. They don't know that it is avyayam and anuttamam. Avyayam is it is unchangeable. It's eternally the same. There is no change to the form of the Lord. Like material bodies, they keep changing, but the form of the Lord is eternally present, and his Nitya Leela continues in that form, eternal Leela. And Anuttamam, that is super excellent. That is his form, very fine. And so now when we go back to the question of why is the absolute truth expanding into so many forms, if the absolute truth is one, ekam sat vipraha bhaudha vadanti, then we find the scriptures mentioning that the Lord has that supreme absolute truth, being a person, also has desires. Because impersonal things we don't see impersonal things having desire. The personal forms, they have desires. And then we see that ya eka varno bahuda shakti yogat varnan anekan nihitarto dadhati. So the Lord, due to his desire, he expands into multiple forms through his shaktis. So, and sadeva saumyedam agrasid ekam eva dvitiyam tad aikshata vasyam prajayeta. So he wanted to expand, and this example is given that when someone wants to expand a family, that is to increase the happiness. So similarly, the Lord, being the supreme enjoyer, he wanted to expand into many, so to produce progeny. So he wanted to expand, and then he wanted to create as a pastime. So this is the Lord can create as a pastime. So, and whenever we create something with our engineering skills, it's all secondary creation. We don't create from nothing, in the sense like there are always we recombine things. So that is what mostly engineering is. But the Lord's creation, on the other hand, is very fundamental. Even Brahma creates only after the Lord supplies the ingredients for him to create. So, and then the Lord wanted to create, and then he created. Now, similarly, the Lord wants to reciprocate with devotees in different rasas, in different modes. And so the Lord takes up different forms for that purpose, and to facilitate that. So there are many living entities that are innumerable living entities that are present, and Lord also takes innumerable forms to reciprocate with the living entities. And to devotees, he reciprocates as their object of love, and the devotees, so that they can enjoy pastimes with the Lord, and the Lord can also enjoy pastimes with the devotees. So, and it is, we just saw that the Supreme Lord is the possessor of all opulences, the 6 opulences that we saw. But then, are these opulences the only things that attract people? Actually, there are other quotations in the scriptures which mention that the Lord is rasa, raso vai saha, rasam hi evayam labdhvanandi bhavati. And when the Lord is rasa, and the living entity wants to attain that Lord, in a particular rasa, and then becomes Anandi, the possessor of Ananda. So there are different ways to understand this. And in one of the translations for why Prabhupada uses the source. So when we take the Lord as the source of all rasas, then by attaining that particular rasa in relation with the Lord, the living entity attains bliss. So that is the other way of understanding it. And we also hear in Vedanta Sutra, Vyasa mentions that Anandamaya Abhyasat. So this also has multiple meanings. One meaning is we are all hankering for happiness, which is true. Nobody wants to go pray to the Lord saying that, oh, please give me suffering. So everybody wants to be happy. And in fact, we also pray that the others are also happy. Right? So we are all looking for that happiness. And the other explanation is the Anandamaya, or one who is the form of bliss itself, is the Lord. And that is whom we are seeking for. So when we seek that Ananda, we understand the process by which we attain that Ananda, which is by bhakti, by prema. And by that, one is established in their eternal rasa with the Lord. And that is what gives Ananda. That is what we are seeking for. And there is this analogy that comes up in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna mentions about an inverted banyan tree. Now, in this world, we don't find an inverted banyan tree. At least I have not seen. Maybe some might have seen. But in one place, we can readily find it. And that is when it is reflected upon a water body. It appears, inverted because of the reflection. And when in that reflection, the tree has, in clear waters, you can clearly see the different parts of the tree mapped to its image. And then when we see that this tree has fruits, and this fruit in the analogy is what we are seeking. So we are seeking the fruit, or what is most meaningful to us, which is happiness. So when we are thinking that, okay, there is the fruit here, and so I should go get it. And if we try to jump into the lake and then looking for the fruit is not there. It's a futile effort. But if people think that, okay, there is no fruit here, means there is no fruit at all. There is no happiness at all. That is incorrect, because we already have a notion of happiness and we are chasing for it. And also that the very fact that there is an image of the fruit also means there is a real fruit somewhere. Just like even for a mirage, when it is reflected as a water body, we know that real water exists somewhere. Similarly, the very fact we are seeking for Ananda in this material world means there exists Ananda somewhere. And we are seeking for that Ananda. So that way, when we are seeking for that pleasure, we need to be able to relate that rasa that we are seeking and the opulences, because people seek opulences as well. People want to be powerful, wealthy, beautiful, knowledgeable, famous, renounced. So all these different opulences also people seek. Now, the devotee seeks to be in the rasa with the Supreme Lord, in a particular rasa. There are 5 types of rasa, right? Shanta rasa, Dasya rasa, Sakhya rasa, Vatsalya rasa, and Madhurya rasa. So the devotees want to be in one of these rasas with the Lord. And then there are also people who want just the power and other things. They want the opulences, which are all, Krishna says that everything that you can see, in 10th chapter he says that everything that you can see in this world are just a spark of my splendor. So he goes to the extent of saying that, after he explains that among the Adityas I am Vishnu, among the Rudras I am Shankara, among the different among the Gurus I am so and so, among the Devas I am so and so. So Krishna gives the entire list in complete 10th chapter, and at the end he says that what is the use of telling all this? With just a single spark of my splendor, I permeate the entire world. So it's like Krishna's opulence is inconceivable. So achintya is how much what Krishna is capable of. In a sense, actually everything is within Krishna, and at the same time, Krishna is not is within everything also, not within everything also. So Krishna explains that in Bhagavad Gita in 2-3 places. So it's very inconceivable, the Lord's opulence. And he is the same Lord who is a small boy and can show the entire universe to his mother in his mouth. And it's not like he was projecting some image and then he was showing something. Mother Yashoda could see the entire universe, and within that she could see planet Earth, and within that, Vrindavan where Krishna was there, and she was seeing Krishna. So that is the view that she got. So it's very inconceivable. Many people think that he's just a small boy. He was also maybe some empowered devata who came. But it's the same Krishna who can just use 3 feet to scale up the entire universe and take everything from Bali. And then it's the same Krishna who can show that just in a small mouth, as a baby, he can show the entire universe. So that is the beauty of or that is the opulence of the Supreme Lord. And externally materialistic people are only attracted to this opulence. Oh, I want to have this ability to do magic. Oh, I want to have this wealth. I want to have this beauty. I want to have this knowledge. So this is how materialistic people fail to see everything in relation to the Lord, but they separate everything from the Lord. So, and this is a classical example of this is Ravana. Ravana was attracted to Sita Mata, and he failed to see that she is a Shakti of Rama. And then it costed him his kingdom, reputation, family, and entire life. Of course, it's a pastime, so Ravana gets delivered. But when we see it as a lesson, we understand that just being attracted to the opulence only means that one is trying to use something that is not theirs for their enjoyment. And that's precisely the mentality why the living entity lives in the material world, for selfish enjoyment. But when one becomes a devotee, they start seeing everything in relation to the Lord. Yomam pashyati sarvatra. So they see that the Lord is there everywhere, and sarvam cha mai pashyati, everything in connection to the Lord, in the Lord. So when they see that, then they see that sarvam khalavidam brahma, that everything is spiritual. There is nothing material for them. Nothing is material for them. And therefore, because nothing is material for them, they don't have Falgu Vairagya, which is, they don't prematurely renounce saying that this is Maya. Because for them, everything is Krishna's energy. So everything is utilized in the service of Krishna. So Prabhupada mentions utility is the principle. So everything utilized in the service of Krishna. If you see Hanuman, on the other hand, he sees Lord Rama and Sita together always, and not separately at all. And he is celebrated among all the worlds for his glorious devotional service. So that is the difference between the divine consciousness of a devotee and material or selfish consciousness of a materialist. So this is an important lesson, to see everything in relation to the Lord, because that also makes everything divine for us. And the moment we start seeing everything and everyone as divine, we don't offend them. So that is a very important learning, to see everything in relation to Krishna. Otherwise, this is just a building, right? There are like cameras, doors and windows like any other building. But when we see this as Krishna's home, then we actually start living in Krishna's home. Otherwise, we will be in a building. So Krishna also reciprocates that way. Ye yata mam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham. Mam vartamano vartante manushya partha sarvashaha. So Krishna says that based on how we approach him, he reciprocates accordingly. So it's important that when we see everything as divine and Krishna's property, then we start seeing we are actually in Krishna consciousness. And that is the stage that we aspire for, so that we start seeing Krishna everywhere and everything in Krishna. And when in such a divine consciousness, when the person leaves the body, Krishna says they come back to him. So it's very important. This entire life is a preparation for that. and it's very important to keep the divine consciousness that way. Now, no. Yeah. So this is the other point. Now we talked about opulences, and many people desire opulences. But the Lord is also rasa, or the source of the rasas. Now then we also desire that we want to be in rasa with the Lord. Now what is this connection between rasa and opulence? Because the Lord has different energies, different opulences, and the Lord is also described as rasa. So just like we talked about Phalgu Vairagya, there is the principle of Yukta Vairagya. Yukta Vairagya is when the devotee is aspiring to be in a rasa with the Lord, develop a relationship with the Lord. They see everything else as Lord's property. And then because of that, they don't desire for that property, but they desire whatever is needed to serve Krishna. So that way, there is a connection between the opulence and rasa when the devotee sees everything in relation to Krishna. But for the materialist, on the other hand, there is fruitive mentality. Only, like as much as I get, then, I will, do service, or, I will worship Krishna. Otherwise, no. So that is having the fruitive mentality. And though at least performing bhakti one way or the other is encouraged, but still that is not the highest stage. The highest stage is just to be in unconditional and pure devotional service. And that is the highest rasa we should aspire for. Anya abhilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavrityam anukilyena krishnanushilanam bhakti uttamam. That is uttama bhakti. To, without anya abhilashita shunyam. The anya abhilashitas, the different desires are not there, material desires. And jnana karmadi anavritam. So different objectives are not there to pursue jnana or karma or get something, some fruity mentality, even if it is knowledge. So all of those are dismissed under the category of uttama bhakti. And uttama bhakti is what yayatma suprasidati. What is the verse? Savai pumsa paro dharmo yato bhakti radokshaje ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. Ahaituki and apratihata bhakti. So that is what is satisfying to the heart. And that happens when the devotee is completely fixed in the service of the Lord. And Krishna mentions such a determination as determination in the mode of goodness. It is unshakable. And we have Ramananda Prabhu here, example of that. And so when we see that when the devotee is having such kind of dhrida vrata, the determination, it's actually a blessing of Krishna, because it's not possible for like anybody and everybody to, they can have, but it's very rare to get that. And Krishna says, Esham tu antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvanda moha nirmukto bhajante mam dhrida vrata. Those who are already all the sinful habits, sinful reactions, they are all done with in their past lives, and then this life they have completely devoted to Krishna's service. Actually, only those people can take up with great determination and faith. Others, for everybody there is an opportunity. For everybody it's a journey. But those who have done their homework in their past lives, they have a head start. So that way it is important to have the right consciousness and associate with the right things in our consciousness. And so everything that we associate with, whether it could be anything within the temple or outside the temple. Of course, within the temple is always special, but when we are able to connect it to Krishna, that is divine consciousness, and that is Krishna consciousness. Yeah. Now that we understand that the Lord is the source of all rasas, as well as the Lord is the source of all opulences, and then the devotees seek the rasa and utilize any opulences in serving back the source. The devotees also undertake the journey of connecting back to the source, Janmadayasya Yataha, who is the Supreme Lord. And there are many innumerable living entities. When one starts inquiring first, Atato Brahma Jigyasa, when one starts inquiring that, okay, there are so many living entities, everybody is taking birth, everybody is dying, and all those things are happening, then what is it? What is the meaning to life? And then slowly the person starts becoming that jigyasur, curious about what life is. And then they take up to some spiritual path. And then once they understand that, okay, the everything around me has been changing right from childhood, and my thoughts have changed, my perspectives have changed, my body has changed, my circumstances have changed, but there is this witness in me who has witnessed everything, which has not changed. That is the soul. So one when at least understands that the soul is present, either at least theoretically, and then when we are undertaking a spiritual practice, then Krishna kindly gives realizations to keep us on the path. So when we understand that the soul is present, the soul is real, then we want to immediately we get the question that, okay, then soul is real for everybody, all living entities are there, so many souls are there, but then where are they coming from? They're coming from the source, janmadayasya yataha. So the one who is the source of asya, or everything that is present, and we want to connect back to that source of everything. Mattah sarvam pravartate, Krishna says, am sarvasya prabho mattah sarvam pravartate. From him everything is coming, so he is the source. So when we want to connect to that source, we have to undertake a path. Just like we want to reunite with someone, like back home, or wherever you consider home. So we want to travel to reunite. So then there is a journey that we undertake, and this is a journey just like we undertake outside. This is a journey within, and in this journey is that of discovery. It's of soul searching or understanding, like who we are and what our relationship with Krishna is. That is sambandha jnana, because there is sambandha or connection to the Supreme. We want to know ourselves, who we are. We want to know what is all that drama going on in the entire world, the universe. I mean, maybe we don't want to, but the universe, as a part and parcel of Krishna's energy, maya adhyakshena prakritihi. And who is this personality from whom everything is emanating? So God, in other words. And what is the relationship between all of these entities? So these are the topics that are present in the scriptures. So the scriptures don't give us trivial instructions. The scriptures give us instructions about what we usually need. So otherwise trivial things are not for that there is we don't we understand it naturally. We don't rely on the scriptures to give us that wisdom, because for trivial things. So once we understand our sambandha with Supreme, then we want to get to that Supreme. We want to undertake the journey. So in that journey, just like we have to maybe if you are going somewhere, like rent a car or buy a plane ticket, and sit in that conveyance and then go to the destination. Similarly, there is a process in place, the paddhati or the abhideya paddhati, which is the ninefold processes of bhakti that are aimed at realizing that relationship, or meeting with that Supreme, the source of everything. And in this context, there is also the destination itself, or the prayojana, what we want to achieve at the end. In bhakti, that is prema, or the highest stage of bhakti, which is love of God. So these are the three stages that our acharyas give us, that these three are integral to our soul searching, or our spiritual journey. And in these, if you look at it, sambandha or abhideya are what we have some influence over. Prayojana, the fruit, when Krishna gives, he gives. We know we only have a prayerful attitude to await that. So that is not in our hand in some sense. Actually, everything Krishna is only empowering. And sambandha and abhideya are at least within something that we can do. We can do something about them. And in this context, Prabhupada mentions a very interesting quote, that religion without philosophy is sentiment, or sometimes fanaticism, and philosophy without religion is mental speculation. Now the philosophy part here is the sambandha jnana. So whatever we understand about ourselves, the universe, the Lord, and the relationship between all this, that is the philosophy part. And the religion, or the paddhati, or the rituals, or the practices part, that is the abhideya. So one does not go without the other. They have to go hand in hand. Because without following the paddhati or the practices, if one is just becoming a dry academic scholar, then that is mental speculation, because there is no realization. We are not living the tradition, and that is not making the heart fertile. It's only giving a bunch of information to work with. And when religion is without philosophy, meaning when we don't read the shastras, or when we don't hear about Krishna, then it will only become a ritual that remains. So as Chaitanya Charan Prabhu beautifully puts it, he says only when the ritual is combined with the spirit, it becomes spiritual. So without the spirit, the spiritual only becomes a mere ritual. So it's important that religion or the practice that we perform, undertake, that has this consciousness, divine consciousness, which comes through the jnana, the philosophy that we get about bhakti, to not take our service or our position within the bhakti community for granted, or to not take our proximity with Krishna for granted. So to be grateful and to not become mechanical, whether it be chanting or hearing or reading or serving prasadam, any of those, to get out of that mechanical or lethargic mode, it's important to have the empowerment from the philosophy or the sambandha jnana. And the process itself has jnana associated with it, because we should know how to perform the process. And then the execution part or performing part comes into picture. So it's important to constantly remind ourselves the smaranam part. We also includes how we should utilize our consciousness to stay fixated in Krishna bhakti and not get deviated by trivial things, because that's not what we are here for. So, and once we understand and then we start practicing, then there are so many bhakti practices also. And for Sambandha Jnana also there are so many scriptures. Now, the different scriptures also have different opinions. Or, let's say not the scriptures have opinions, but different commentators may have different opinions about what the scriptures are saying. So, Vyasadeva is clear. He says that Shastra Yonitvat. If you want to know Atato Brahma Jigyasa, you have to take the path of the Shastras. And Krishna also mentions that how to get this Sambandha Jnana. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshinaha. He says that there are people who are already realized souls, tattvadarshi, they have seen the absolute truth. So taking shelter of them. And what do we do when we take shelter of them? Vidhi, tatvidhi, by due procedure, pranipatena, by exhibiting due respect, pariprashnena sevaya. So we serve them, and we also ask questions. And upadekshanti te jnanam, they can give the upadesha, because that jnaninas tattvadarshinaha, they are jnaninaha and tattvadarshinaha. So they have knowledge and they have also realized it. So that is what makes them very special. So when great souls are present here, some sannyasis come, or some Vaisheshika Prabhuji is there, many senior devotees are there. So taking the association of them and hearing from them is a very important component to get the Sambandha Jnana. And also the Jnana about Abhideya as well, how to practice correctly. And once we get that, same thing, in Abhideya there are many parts to it. There are many things we can do which would be counted as bhakti activities. And the form of it, because ultimately bhakti also has to do with consciousness, but just the form of it, like Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atma Nivedanam. These are the processes that Prahlad Maharaj describes in Bhagavatam, that listening about the Supreme Lord. And then Kirtanam, glorifying the Supreme Lord. Vishnu Smaranam, remembering the Supreme Lord. And then Pada Sevanam, by massaging the lotus feet of the Lord, those who are doing deity worship. And Archanam, to do the Archana of the Lord, worshipping Vandanam, offering obeisances. Dasyam, serving the Lord in the mood of service. Sakhyam, and serving in a friendly spirit. Atma Nivedanam, serving in the spirit of surrender. So all of these are different processes that are present in bhakti, and they are all potent in their own right. And but Bhagavatam gives us a clue, as telling us that in different yugas, different standard practices were followed as a mainstream bhakti practice. And Krite Dhyayato Vishnu Tretayam Yajato Makai Dwapare Paricharyayam Kalautad Hari Kirtano. So in Kali Yuga, Hari Kirtana is the recommended method. That is why we see that so many acharyas, whether it be within our own tradition or different Vaishnava traditions, they all propagated Nama Sankirtana. Of course, we have our gratitude to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, due to whom we can chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and all the acharyas, especially Srila Prabhupada, who brought the holy names to the pretty much every person in the world. Because otherwise life would be very different. So that one pure devotee's sacrifice and tapasya that he did for pleasing Krishna and pleasing his guru, that is bearing fruits in the form of the gathering, in the form of the books that we have, in the form of the knowledge, in the form of the holy names we can chant. Everything is in one sense due to Prabhupada's mercy. So it is important to acknowledge the significance of Sankirtana, Hari Sankirtana, and that is Srimad Bhagavatam's verdict. And now then there are so many procedures to follow the holy name, like chant loud, chant as japa, chant in the mind, some do different practices, and then there are offenses as well. And Sankirtanam is chanting the holy name together and this one of the arguments, this is given in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, and the Vishnu Dutas give this argument to Gopakumar. And so there it comes that when the holy names are chanted loudly, they benefit not only the people who are chanting, but everything animate and inanimate around. So the loud chanting of the holy name is most glorious. So there are also offenses that Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami mentions in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So there are all the 10 offenses for the holy names. But the holy name is so merciful, and this is a citation from Padma Purana. So the holy name is so merciful that even if one commits offenses to the holy name, just by continuing to chant without deviation, one becomes purified, and that is the beauty of holy name. The holy name is actually the best thing that we have in our life in one sense, because Bhaktivinoda Thakur's mood is this: Nama bina kichu nahiko ara chauda bhuvana maje. He says there is nothing that is to be done in the entire 14 worlds than to have the holy name, which is to chant and hear the holy name. This exclusive mood of surrender, this is what it takes to completely be devoted, to be a devotee of the holy name. And the holy name is what is going to deliver, because the holy name is not different from the Lord. And in fact the Lord is Triyugi. He doesn't appear in Kali Yuga openly, only as Channa form. But then he appeared, and then his pastimes are not manifest to most people. Then what do the others do? The Lord appears as the holy name, Abhinnatvam Nama Namino. So the same Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shuddho Nitya Mukta Abhinnatvam Nama Namino. So the same Lord is the Rasa Vigraha, is the form of all pleasure and all rasas. And Purna Shuddho Nitya Mukto, eternally he awards unconditional life beyond the worlds of birth and death, and completely pure, Abhinnatvam Nama Namino. Just by chanting the holy names, there is no amount of either sinful reaction or the degradation of consciousness that will remain. by chanting the holy name. The holy name is so powerful that one cannot even commit anything that cannot be purified by the holy name. Of course, this is not a license, but this is the glory of the holy name, that one can understand what a fortunate condition that we are in at this point. Because it's not like the awareness for holy name will always continue to exist like this. It is in this particular, due to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy and due to Prabhupada's mercy, that we are in that state. Otherwise, this knowledge will be hidden and not manifest. That we are fortunate that we are in this era, and there is so much of Sankirtan going on throughout the world. And there is so much of chaos also in the world. I was reading the other day that there was this devotee who was distributing khichdi and pakoras prasadam to the people in Ukraine. So, and then devotees, they preach in many countries, like where other religions are not encouraged. So it is very, in one sense, fortunate time to be in, living in this world, because like whatever 50-100 years anybody lives, to be living at this juncture in the world itself is a big boon. It's a big blessing. And to be able to have the association of devotees and to be able to practice is even a better blessing. And so Bhagavatam's, Chaitanya Charitamrita's quotation, this is Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Harer Nama Eva Kevalam, Kalau Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gatiranyatha. So like very vehement, very like, clear that only Harinama, Eva Kevalam, so exclusively only the holy name. Kalau Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gatiranyatha. There is absolutely no other way out. I mean, pretty much like that. So it is extremely important that the due regard be given to Harinam Prabhu, who has mercifully descended. And so the mechanical chanting and all the offenses will slow down the progress. And it's important to have in consciousness that this holy name is very special. Though it appears like we can always take the name, it is actually very special. And we should remember that Valmiki could not take the name to begin with. He couldn't chant Rama. Now that we are able to chant itself is a big blessing of the Lord. Really. And so it's important to cherish that blessing and relish it and move forward, progress toward the supreme destination. And Krishna actually says that only by bhakti we can know him. He says Bhagavad Gita that Mam tu Vedana Kaschana. I'm forgetting how the verse starts, but he says nobody knows me. And then he says in the 18th chapter that Bhaktya Mam Abhijanati Yavanyaschasmi Tatvatah Tato Mam Tatvato Kyata Vishate Tatanantaram. Initially he says that nobody knows me. And then, there is another place where he says, Manushyanam Sasreshu Kaschit Yatati Siddhaye Yatatam Api Siddhanam Kaschin Mam Veti Tatvatah. Very, very like rarely somebody knows him, Krishna says. And Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kaschit Yatati Siddhaye. Among like many, many thousands of people, few people attain perfection. Siddhaye. Yatatam Api Siddhanam. Among thousands of such perfectionists, Kaschin Mam Veti Tatvatah. Only like very few know me. And in other places, Vedaham Samatitani Vartamanani Charjuna Bhavishyani Cha Bhutani Mam tu Vedana Kaschana. He says, I know that Vedaham Samatitani Vartamanani Charjuna. I know like all the living entities. I know like the present Bhavishyani Cha Bhutani. I know the future and the past. But me, no one knows. Krishna says that. And then at the end he says how to know him. Because previously also he says, Janma karma chame divyam yo evam yo veti tatvatah tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. He gives he says that those who know him in reality, that his birth and his appearance, his pastimes are transcendental, like we have Lord Rama appearing tomorrow. So he says that all of those transcendental activities, those who know, they do not return to this world. But then, who knows? He says that hardly anybody knows. He says those who knows will not return, but then he says that hardly we know, like hardly anybody knows. He gives at the end Bhagavad Gita, he says that bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatvatah tatva mam tatvato jnatva vishate tadanantaram tato mam tatvato jnatva vishate tadanantaram. So he says that bhaktya mam abhijanati, I can be known by bhakti. Krishna is very clear about this. He does not say that you follow like some other paths. Actually, many paths adopt Bhagavad Gita as a very mainstream book to get knowledge, whether it be like Jnana Yoga or like different yoga margas. But Krishna says very clearly that by bhakti only, like he can be known as he is. Because think about this, right? Like if somebody wants to know about one of your family members, whether somebody doing PhD on them will know, or somebody living with them, like who have access to their life will know, right? So similarly, by academic study or by self effort, only so much there could be progress, and that also because there is some bhakti in it. And but only by bhakti Krishna can be known as he is. And with such bhakti, when somebody offers even banana peels, Krishna happily accepts it. And Krishna is not looking for anything, because he has everything with him. But he just, he's happy when the devotees lovingly offer him something. Just like when he went to he rejected, Duryodhana's bhoga, and then he went to Vidura's place, and then he ate, he ate like very simple foodstuffs. And there also, when Vidurani was serving him, she was completely mesmerized, and she would peel the bananas, put the bananas away and give him the peel, and then Krishna happily accepts it. So this is the beauty of Krishna, that he is so kind that he is ready to accept his devotees no matter what. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is all the more merciful, and we are living at such a juncture in this life. And yeah, so that's all I actually had for my slides also. Yeah, so Hare Krishna, Jai Shri Ram. Please.
Thank you for the nice class. It was very nice, Prabhu. You summarized Ram Leela in the beginning, and then slowly you moved towards explaining the different philosophical aspects and how kind of we can move towards the ultimate goal, which is love of God through Samanda Vidya and Prajna. Prabhu, I had a question. So, as devotees of Krishna, I feel like, I should be loyal to Krishna, but sometimes I do get a lot of interest in Lord Rama's pastimes, especially these aspects of he showing how to be an ideal human being, teaching, because Krishna's pastimes are sometimes very difficult to relate as a human being. But Rama's pastimes, I feel easier to relate, because he doesn't show a lot of extraordinary things, and he shows how to be an ideal father, ideal husband, ideal king, ideal son. So I was just wondering, is it okay, like to be a Krishna devotee sometimes to feel attracted to other incarnations of the Lord?
So I am just reminded of something when I hear your question, Prabhu. I will try to, I will do my attempt to respond. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Gadadhar Pandit, obviously they were in the highest rasa that we think of, in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And then they would read the Prahlad Maharaja's pastimes so much, who was in Shantarasa. So it is, sometimes it could appear that, we want to progress toward one particular path. Then, should we not consider other paths, or how do we relate to them? So in the similar spirit, actually all of these are Lord's qualities. So the Krishna exhibits like more qualities. When he comes as Purna Purushottam Bhagavan. And Lord Rama appears with Maryada Purushottam Avatar. Those are the different manifestations of the Lord for the mood of the devotees he wants to reciprocate with. And it is completely natural for devotees with certain natures to feel attracted toward a particular form of the Lord. And by making progress, by associating with the pastimes of the Lord, whether social acceptability is not our criteria. Our criteria is how much attachment we develop to the Lord. Because many people may not be able to appreciate pastimes of Lord Ram either. Some of the people still have, they may have their own concoctions or opinions about it. And same with the Krishna Lila also, that people may think. But if somebody is inspired by those ideals, the ideals of integrity, or all those keeping the word of Lord Rama, then they may feel more attracted to that personality, and he is also the same Lord. And then, but if somebody is attracted to the ideals of let's say unconditional love, rasa, maybe they will feel more attracted to a certain path. And ultimately, wherever the heart feels at home, eventually we anyway go there. So if we are getting indications from within that we are naturally inclined toward one way or the other, when we become more serious in bhakti, we will naturally gravitate toward that. And Krishna is also guiding from within. We may like some things, or but like is not the right word. We may feel more inclined toward some things. We may have the disposition to appreciate some pastimes more, relate to them more than the other. So anyway, like, I'm not qualified to say it is okay or not, but definitely in whichever form we associate with the Lord, we are only making progress. And
yeah. So what I understand, you're saying it's okay, like, to be a devotee of Lord Krishna, but then having affinity to particular incarnations, particular pastimes.
yeah, Mother Yashoda would tell stories of Rama to Krishna in the childhood. So it's completely like, if somebody is feeling attracted to one form of the Lord, there are devotees who are very devout worshippers of Narsimha, and there are devotees who are devout worshippers of Vamana, and we will find all kinds of devotees within the community. And whichever we feel gravitated toward, then we progress toward that path. And then ultimately, like all the living entities, when they go to the spiritual world, they are in Nitya Lila, they are serving the Lord. And in whichever rasa they are there, they are completely satisfied. There is nothing that can be given for Hanuman to change his rasa. He is completely satisfied there. And that is the highest rasa for him. So similarly, when the devotee is completely satisfied, that becomes their highest, what they consider as the highest. So now, by that measure, it is in fact a beautiful thing if somebody is feeling attracted to Lord Rama's pastimes.
Okay, got it. And Prabhupada, one other thing, just last thing I wanted to mention. Prabhupada said this, that there may be kings who were kind of equally qualified to like Lord Rama in respect to reigning. Like he mentioned about Maharaj Yudhishthira. I think it's in the third canto, probably fifth chapter. I don't specifically recall now, that he mentioned that Yudhishthira Maharaj had also very good qualities as a king, and he could be compared with Lord Rama with respect to success and all, but he cannot be called God. If when it comes perspective of being the supreme Lord, that is Lord Rama. That's not Yudhishthira, and all acharyas unanimously agree with that. So you also brought the topic up that there can be many successful kings, but everyone cannot be the Lord like Lord Rama.
Yeah, I think Prabhupada also mentions about this in the purport somewhere. Yeah. Yes, thank you, Prabhu. If you are pleased, then Krishna will be happy with me, hopefully. Okay. Are there any other questions, or I think already we are 10 minutes over. Okay, thank you very much. Please forgive any offenses. I've pronounced words incorrectly in between, and hopefully you will forgive me for that. And thank you for tolerating. Hare Krishna.